Welcome back, guys, to A.C.P. Today, we're going to be following up for what we did last week on Thursday, which was a toad video. We're going to be talking about toads today, in fact. So, yes, before we get on to the talk part, we're going to be talking, I'm going to address the comment that we had. How do you pronounce the scientific name for toad? UK common toad, actually. Baffo or Buffo, and it is Buffo. So, I did get that wrong last time. But anyway. So, hello Paul, how are you?
Good evening, I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. You?
I'm good.
All good on this side. So, tell us a little bit about what you do when you do toad patrol.
Right. Toad patrol is fundamentally one of the activities that goes on up and down the country to try to prevent toads in certain populations from becoming extinct. And we do that by preventing one of the greatest threats to toads when they attempt to return to the pond in which they themselves were bred. And that is crossing roads that, of course, weren't there millennia ago when the whole process started. So we go down generally between January and end of March with buckets, torches, and high vis. We wander up and down the roads, picking the toads up on one side of the road and moving them closer to the pond that they're trying to get to. With the idea that we get them off the road, they don't get squashed, and we end up with more toads given time.
Well, that's good. Do you think the government, would try and make a way that it would stop toads from being run over, like making some sort of a hole going underground or something? Do you think maybe?
There are a number of things that can be done, and one of the things you mentioned there, yes, is a tunnel. They can be placed under the road, and the drainage on either side set up so it steers the toads and other amphibians who will use it through the tunnel and saves them actually risking their lives crossing the roads. That's one possibility. The other thing that goes on in various parts of the country is that local councils will close the roads for the duration of the toad migration. Unfortunately, all of these things cost money and they're very difficult to put in place. So in a lot of cases, we are reliant on volunteers who give up their time to turn up and help us to move the toads.
Like, have numbers increased? How long have you been doing it?
Well, I got involved, I think it was 2022, so this is my third year doing it. I think the Toad Patrol was put in place in 2019. I've been having a look at the figures that are going back. It's difficult to tell whether we are having a positive impact on the toad population, because if the toad patrols are sporadic, you can't tell whether there were any toads on the evenings if there's nobody there to monitor. That said, we have managed to move 274 at Lower Road this year, which is a good number. And I've also spoken to the chap who has the pond in his garden, and he does seem to think that he's got a lot of toads this year. So I can't say yes, we're having a positive impact, but if nothing else, the toad population does not appear to be decreasing.
Well, that's good. Do you need qualifications for this sort of stuff?
No qualifications as such. Obviously, anybody that likes wildlife generally would be more than adequately qualified to come and do toad patrol with us. So about the only thing that is a qualification, if it is such, would be the fact that you cannot have an aversion to picking toads up, but that's it. The rest of it's all very easy. You just scoop them up off the road, pop them in a bucket, nice and safe, walk down the road close to the pond, and then take them out and let them go.
That's good. Um, do you use like any sort of like equipment to pick them up or stuff? Because they're warped, obviously. So, is there any infection?
Well, yes, I probably ought to talk a little bit about amphibians because we're talking specifically about toads here. And on the basis that all toads are frogs, but not all frogs are toads, I probably ought to mention frogs as well, um, because they do differ slightly. Toads have a drier skin and a thicker skin. Basically, the only precaution you need to do with a toad is to make sure that you've washed your hands in clean water before handling them, because in all cases they breathe and drink through their skin. So if you've got anything on your skin, salts, hand creams, or anything else, it can be absorbed through the toad or frog skin, and can be very harmful for them. So yes, you can pick them up with your bare hands in the case of toads. If you don't want to pick them up with your bare hands, then plastic gloves, the sort that you get at petrol stations, the thin plastic ones, are fine. Not to use rubber ones because they contain petrochemicals and those go straight through the skin of toads and frogs and is very harmful for them. But if I just mention, as I've scratched on the surface of frogs, best not to pick them up. Their skin is very thin. Their skin is also wet. If it dries out, they're unable to breathe. So because we're warm-blooded, we are very likely, A, to pass chemicals through their skin, and B, dry them out as well, which is very harmful for them. So in the case of frogs, please don't pick them up with your bare hands unless it's an emergency and you're saving a life.
Well, yeah, I suppose that could be true.
I've got a question. Are red, no, fire-bellied toads native to the UK?
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that. It was very echoey. Could you repeat the question?
Native to the UK?
No, I'm not catching it. It's breaking up.
Are fire-bellied toads native to the UK?
Oh, right, I got it that time. No, fire-bellied toads are not native to the UK. We do have a couple on the island at Monkey Haven, but they're rescues. They've obviously been somebody's pets at some point. So no, fire-bellied toads are not. We only have two species native toad in the UK, and that's the common toad and the natterjack toad, and two species of frogs.
Well, a couple of seconds ago, I heard you say, like, wash your hands before picking up toads. Would that, how would you wash your hands? Would you wash your hands with, like, the pond water, or would you wash your hands with normal tap water? Because to them, pond water might be clean, right?
Yes. Basically, tap.
Oh no.
But do bear in mind, of course, we don't want any chemicals that you've had on your hands getting into the pond. So don't just go down the pond and sort of dunk your hands in it and give them a good rub, because that may not be good at all.
Well, I get that. Is there like, is there any sort of like special water though? Is there like, I don't know how to like describe it. Is there any like chemical that is really bad for their skin?
Basically, yes, there are an awful lot. Um, Anything petrochemical, for example, petrols, diesels, any liquid that has a relatively low viscosity is likely to pass through the skin of amphibians. It'll pass through our skin as well, but much more slowly.
Cool though. That's some cool. That's a cool fact. Do like are their tongues sticky or slimy?
Toads' tongues are sticky because they use their tongues for catching prey. They'll flick their tongue out, and because it's sticky, it will stick to the fly or beetle or whatever it is they've got their eye on, and they pick it up and put it in a mouth. They have a little bit more trouble with slugs, but they can cope with those as well. I've seen them do it. Slugs being slightly slimy.
Yeah. Um, their tongue is in fact a muscle, isn't it?
Yes, all tongues are muscle. Our tongues are muscle. Frogs and toads' tongues are muscles.
I'm guessing it's quite a strong one because if they need
I would imagine relatively, yes, for their size.
probably not the biggest of their size, maybe, but you never can tell. But like, do you have any way, going back now a bit, do you have any ways to calculate the numbers of toads at all?
Well, that's a difficult one. The only way really you can do it is by surveying, and it is a little bit of guesswork. What you do is you count the number of toads in a given area, say a 1 square meter area, and then multiply it up by the remaining area where they potentially could be. It's a bit hit and miss, but the point with all of this is that you don't really want to disturb wildlife unless it's absolutely necessary. So when I say we uh, have helped 274 toads across the road, that has only been during the hours when traffic's at its most dense. So we're out generally just before sunset until a little while after the rush hour, or when the traffic subsided. Now you've got to bear in mind that the toads they migrate to the pond all the way through the night. So we're only getting a snapshot of the total numbers that are moving. The chap with the pond, for example, said he returned home from holiday at 1:45, and he had to stop because the road was covered in toads, and so was his drive. So it's just a little example. I mean, the toad patrol is only there really to protect the toads from being killed on the roads. If there's no traffic around, which there generally isn't in the small hours of the night, then it's reasonably safe to let them cross the roads on their own. But you've got to bear in mind that's one side of the pond. Of course, we're only looking at 1/4, possibly a bit more than a quarter. But of course, there's an equal length of frontage on the other side of the property and a bit top and bottom as well. So we've probably seen less than a third of the toads that are moving at the time of day that we've been out helping them across the road. So ideally, a decent breeding colony will have a minimum of 400 or 500 toads. I don't know how many at this site. I would hazard a guess we're probably closer to about 800.
That's a big number.
It's quite a big pond.
Yeah.
Not enormous, but it's a good size.
Like, why doesn't like the government just like take away certain roads or make like going back now a bit actually as well, taking like making ways safer for toads to cross the roads, of course. Like,
Well, I did touch on the fact that installing, underpasses and signage and things like that all cost money. The reason fundamentally they don't want to move roads or close them is because that will inconvenience people and make the people doing it unpopular. We have a system in this country, obviously, where we boat people in, and of course, if you lived on a road that had toads on it and couldn't get home for 3 months a year, you wouldn't be very happy with the people in power, would you? It's a sad state. But what we have to do, of course, you have to realise that whatever solution we come up with has to work for everybody, has to protect the wildlife, and it also has to, be acceptable to the people who you get in the way of. I mean, when we're doing the tow patrol, obviously the traffic just has to slow down and it gives us a chance to pick the toads up rather than get run over. That's not much of an inconvenience. Closing the road would be much worse. And of course, if they were to dig the road up and put an underpass in, that would involve closing the road for some considerable time. So it's a tough one. I think the answer really would be if money were no object, the next time they close the road for resurfacing, they should install the underpass. However, I'm not holding my breath for that to happen because that's extra expense.
Okay, well, thank you so much for this lovely chat. I absolutely
One
enjoyed
more
it.
question to ask. Are there any non-native species in the UK of toads?
You mean in the wild? I'm
Yeah.
guessing you mean in the wild. Yes, there are. There are a number of reported colonies. Subject to confirmation. One of the problems we have is there just isn't enough people to go out and do all the surveying that's necessary to confirm where all the toads and frogs and newts and other amphibians are. So reports of non-native species are somewhat hearsay. There is a report pops up from time to time about midwife toads in the Winchester area, for example. People can hear them croaking or believe that they can hear them croaking, but the exact location of them is not known. The other thing, of course, is there have been some reintroductions of species that were native and have become extinct over the years. For example, the marsh frog has been reintroduced somewhere or the other, I believe in Essex, but the exact location is top secret. They went to Europe, got some of these, brought them back. They've been very successful to the point that the population is sufficient that they can either repopulate somewhere back in Europe where they came from or somewhere else in the UK.
I do have one final thing that I want to add in. How do like younger generations get involved, or even older generations? Like, how would people get involved?
If you were talking specifically about toad patrol, all you need to do really is to have a look on the Frog Life website, find your nearest toad crossing, and have a chat with your parent or guardian because they will need to accompany you if you're under 18. And you're more than welcome to come down and join us whenever is convenient for yourself. We'll show you exactly what we do, and we will never turn down anybody that comes out and helps. We do need help. There are a number of crossings on the island where we just don't have anybody yet, so help is desperately needed.
Well, as I said, so much thank you thank you so much for this. It's been absolutely delightful. So yeah,
Good to talk to you this evening. Hope the information is useful.
I bet it will be as well. Yes, bye bye guys, bye.
Like and subscribe.
Good night.
Bye bye.